Unbound Gravel, it's a heck of a place to test a bike and gear. Today was a two-plugger. I had Dyna plugs in both the bar ends. These guys have dual-sided plugs. Both of them now reside in the rear tire as I continued my fine tradition of stopping mid-race for a brief flat. Did not have to put a tube in, was able to get it patched up and rolling. In this video, I want to talk about tires, yes. Also this Time ADHX 45 that fit these 45 tires. The new Shimano GRX 12-speed group. Been spending more time on this, taking some measurements, having some more feels. I want to talk about these Assioma Pro MX power meter pedals. Spoiler alert, pretty good so far. Talk about the nutrition situation, like with this in the jersey. The nutrition in here, I've got a full bottle of horchata now, thanks to the good folks who also sold me some tacos there at the finish line. I want to talk about how the day went overall. This video is supported by FasCat. You can now get your first month free on the FasCat app and get unlimited training plans, instant feedback analysis, and you can also work with coaches like my man Elliot Baring, who won the 100-mile race today. Nice work, Elliot. One thing I love about Unbound Gravel, if you're not an elite, which many of us are not, is you get to ride with all sorts of people. Today I enjoyed riding with juniors, former Olympians, men, women, young folks, old folks. A man named Valtteri Bottas, who, as luck would have it, is on this unreleased 13-speed SRAM Red Explorer group. You can check out that video above. First, take a second to subscribe. I appreciate that. That helps me out. Now sit back and let's dig into Unbound Gravel.
Absolutely not. How many riders did
Unbound Gravel 2024. There we go.
For this year, 18th edition of the Lifetime Unbound Gravel event. And Gloria, are you ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The 100-mile.
If you're just interested in one bit, like the frame or the pedals or the tires, you can use the little table of contents below to jump to those sections. Let's start with tires, right? That's always the big question. What tire to run and what tire to run? And this year in particular, big was in. The man Alex Howes put it thusly: go fat or go flat. Alas, I did not go fat enough with my 45s. I'll have to check to see how Alex did with his big old 50s that he was running. If you guys have been watching my channel for a bit, you know I love the feel of the Schwalbe G1, with the RS being my favorite tire. Feels super supple, tests fast. There's a bit of shoulder knob for grip on the side. Came out here with those tires on, and Seb Brewer, who just won the XL 350 miles in a record time, also happens to work for Schwalbe. Took a look at my tires. He's like, yeah, you're gonna want something bigger and beefier. Why are we changing tires, Seb?
I think this year Unbound is quite rocky with a lot of sharp stones, so we need some extra protection for your tires.
Thank you. Seb put on some 45 overlands for me, which for many folks proved to be a great solution. Griffin Easter, for instance, when he won the 8-day Transcordilleras bikepacking race down in Colombia, was on the overlands, had great luck with them. I just ride like a bag of anvils, I guess, you know, I just hit stuff. It has me thinking I may have to go in and try the new, or what would be new for me, the gravel liner. Like I was speaking to Oriole Bull of Victoria at the expo. He's showing off the new gravel liner that's coming out for a 42 to a 50 tire. My hesitation has always been, you know, I get the benefit of a liner, but what happens when you tear a sidewall and you're by the side of the trail off in the middle of the prairie and you have to wrestle with a thing to get it out? Would that have prevented the flat? Who knows? So that'll be something for Unbound 2025. Run some liners. Try my luck there. Tires were mounted to the new from DT Swiss, the GRC 1100s. 50 mil deep wheel, bladed aero spokes, because aero is everything. DT claims these wheels are faster across the board than other similar depth wheels from all the main makers, Envy, Zip, Hunt, etc. Notably, Zip's got some unreleased gravel aero hoops around, such as on Valtteri's bike, on Nicky Terpster's bike, on Alex House's bike. Zip is not talking about that any more than they're talking about the group, but they're out there, man. So I'll be curious to see how those test against these. But aero gravel wheels are a thing, and I think for an event like this one, they're a good thing. You know, even with, you know, it wasn't super windy today, but wind is often a factor in the prairie. One hesitation folks might have is it going to be blustery and get blown around? I did not feel that at all and was happy to have aero wheels. DT previously had hookless gravel wheels. Mountain is hookless, road is hooked, and now gravel is also hooked. DT is careful to say that they don't believe hookless is unsafe necessarily if everything is done right, but they're just concerned that some folks might not do everything according to the specifications of the wheel and the tire maker. So to have a little extra bit of caution, they're going hooked. Now let's talk about the bike. Time ADHX 45. Unique construction story here. Compared to how carbon frames are typically made, which is pre-preg carbon that already has epoxy in it, cut into pieces, laid into a mold, a bladder is inserted, and then it's baked in an oven. This is woven like a textile, like a sock, and each tube has 3 layers of said sock that run the length of the tube, and the front triangle is made as a piece, and then the rear is, to my eyes, kind of an old school design with a lug. I don't know if you can, how well you can see that with all the dirt and sealant on here, but the seat stays yoked in via a lug, and the same for each of the chain stays. Another cool thing about weaving your own carbon is, aside from having a cool visual like this video that Time shared with me, thanks for sharing that, Time, is that they can weave in other types of materials such as Vectran or Dyneema to add, you know, strength or other properties. So with this Discover Pro, has a little window on the Discover Pro stem, you can see the Vectran fiber woven in. Does this unique style of weaving carbon make the bike feel different? I don't know. I can tell you how it feels, which is stiff where I like it and a little bit softer where I also appreciate it, in that when you're accelerating coming out of these dirty corners or on the pavement, there's no discernible give or flex to it, which feels good. You know, also like descending on pavement, it's just very precise, to pick a word. Conversely, the amount of give in the frame vertically, and some of that may be due to this Stealth off-road saddle, which is a decent amount of padding. It's a pretty comfy bike. To be clear, a lot of what you're feeling in a gravel bike in terms of comfort is coming from your tire size and type and pressure, right? Tested a few different wheel sets and a few different tires, 40s, 44s, 45s on this. It's a pretty comfortable bike. It's, you know, not on the, you know, far end of the plush spectrum of one of my favorites, the Giant Revolt, which has a longer seat post and some bend to it in the defuse post. If you haven't seen it, check out the prototype Giant Revolt bike video that I popped up recently. It's certainly not like the Specialized Diverge STR suspended rider that has an actively moving back end. But for a bike that has such a relatively short seat post, I thought it was going to feel a lot harsher than it does. So all in all, it's been a pleasant surprise to ride. A well-mannered, balanced bike, if we were talking about bicycles the way people talk about wine. And critically, the colorway is lovely. I know there's press fit haters out there, folks ready to go to the mat over a bottom bracket style. And yes, this is press fit. The folks at Time say because of their design style, they can manufacture it with an immaculately tight tolerance, which is the critical part in not getting any movement and the dreaded squeak. I don't have a really strong position on press fit, to be frank. As long as the thing works well and isn't squawking, I'm not religious about it one way or the other. Oh, I got this horchata that I was telling you about that I forgot about. We'll save that Coke for later. So having tall boys and the 2-liter pack meant I didn't have to stop. I paid for the aid station this year. Last year, I, in my ignorance, neglected to do so, and it was a very long day because of the mud, and I came in and was asking, where's neutral? And they're like, yeah, there's no neutral. Either you pay or you don't. I paid this year, but didn't have to use it because I had, 2 liters, effectively, like almost 4 liters, right? Between the bottles and the hydration bladder in the jersey. I drank, put the high calorie EFS Pro in the bladder and in one of the bottles. So I was getting plenty of calories there while keeping the hands on the bike. It was a very fast, relatively fast, not as fast as the 200 of course, relatively fast start, pretty wide open roads for the first 20 miles or so. So it was good to be able to be taking on calories and hydration without having to take my hands off the bars. And then when it got chunky into the spot where it flatted the tire, again, good not to have to worry about drinking bottles. Speaking of tall bottles, I was happy that they stayed in the cages. That's always an iffy thing. I tested these cages out at Stettin's Pay Dirt, which was pretty rowdy in parts, so I had confidence that they would hold. Hooray for the horchata. So EFS Pro in the bladder in one of the bottles, and then just the regular EFS in the other. And then, I didn't run a bag of any sort. And just relied on the pockets of the jersey for the rest of the nutrition, which consisted of liquid shot and the regular and then the caffeinated. Got gloves in here. Also used the pockets on the back of the bibs, the unlimited free, to have this guy in place. So if and when I got a flat, I didn't have to go digging through the bag and spread the contents all over the earth the way, say I did at Unbound a couple years ago when I stopped, panicked, grabbed the things out, fixed the flat, jumped back on the bike, took off with the zipper open and stuff going everywhere. So it's the little things, right? So I appreciated traveling relatively light. No pack, no bags, just using pockets. A pocket for the bladder, pocket for the gels, use the side pockets of the bibs as trash pockets for said gel wrappers, and then the back of the bibs for the CO2 and breaker. That's what I do. Well, the group is gone. Come on. Yeah. Television timeout. See how long that'll hold. Give it a crack. Wah, wah. And thus I continue my tradition of flatting at mile 25 or so. And now it's a different day. It's not so bad. One thing I appreciate about the jersey holding the bladder and not having to wear a pack is a super niche thing in that I'm wearing my little action cam, the DJI, on a chesty strap underneath my jersey, and that's already one thing strapped around my chest, so not having to have another thing on top of that is a good thing. Realize very few of us nerds wear such a thing. So you ask if the bladder gets hot, how that feels on the skin. Because I've got this whole contraption underneath, which does get hot, the bladder wasn't something that I noticed, honestly. This video is supported by FasCat. I use the app and the training plans they're in to prepare for this race, and I can now look at the stats afterwards. 6 hours and change, OTS score of 479. OTS is FasCat's in-house optimized training score. You may be familiar with training stress scores, a metric to see how big of a day it was. It was a big day. It was a big day. What are we looking at for power? 264. 20-minute peak was 324. There's a couple color-coded graphs that I like. One being power over time, color showing the power zone. You can see where I flatted and then I chased hard for about 25 miles until I realized I was going nowhere fast and found a group and settled in and rode it in from there. Another color-coded thing is the map. You can also see what sort of power you're doing at what points on the course. Turns out the first half I was going harder. The second half was not putting out as much power, although it still feels hard, right? The second half always feels hard, even if the power meter is disagreeing with you. FasCat's now got a desktop version, so you can see the week, the month, all at once. Zoom in by day. You can drop and drag workouts around when life pops up for you. Training plans scale to your available time to train, so it's not like there's just one set in stone training plan that you must follow come hell or high water. Start by being honest with how much time you have to train. FasCat app builds you a plan based on your goal, and then you can tweak it from there. FasCat app works with all your favorite gadgets, be they power meters, heart rate monitors, or wearables. The power meter and heart rate monitor measure how much work you're doing, and then your wearables measure your recovery. And then the FasCat app balances the two to let you know what your training balance is. Go check out the app now. First month is free. Speaking of power meter gadgets, let's talk power meter pedals. Got the Assioma Pro MX pedals on here. I've got SRM X Power and Garmin Rally. This guy is big and chunky, and I've had issues with my cleats sliding around in there, squawking, occasionally popping out at races like BWR Kansas. Not a big fan of this, although the power readings, in my experience, seem quite good. And you've got replaceable batteries, which is a pretty easy thing to do on the road and certainly easy to buy at most places. Big chunky form factor, a little on the heavy side, not my favorite. SRM X Power, similar form factor to a Shimano pedal, which I appreciate. Pretty darn light, pretty comparable to a Shimano XT pedal. Power meter measurement is good, but they're just so fiddly to set up with the app, and they require a lot of care and feeding. They have a rechargeable battery which runs with cables, and then you've got this little magnetic clip that also super fiddly to get to clip on correctly and engage. And then first one, and then the second cable that is specific to this little clip broke and rendered the pedals non-workable. The folks at SRM are very nice. I'm sure they could replace this stuff for you or for me, but this is an issue that in my mind is not ideal. Now we've got Assioma. Similar to the SRM, it does have a rechargeable internal battery system, which this company says is ideal because there's no potential for water or dust or other muck ingress into the system. Thus far, the clip-on system has been working fine for me, and the charge lasts, I don't know what they're claiming, but quite some time. I haven't charged these in a couple of weeks. Form factor is similar to the SRM, similar to a Shimano pedal. It's got a bit wider perch. What I loved about these things today is that I didn't think about them as power meter pedals. I didn't think about them at all. They just worked the way you want pedals to work, which is you can clip in when you want to, clip out when you want to, no rock, no noise. It's just a solid engagement system, which these guys have not been so much. And that's the #1 job of a pedal, right? Be a good pedal. This is a good pedal. In terms of how the power meter functions, how it compares to others, that's always a funny thing comparing, because who do you trust? You know, if 2 systems agree, that's good. If 3 power meters agree, that's better, but does that mean they're all right? Or that they've just agreed to be wrong together? Here I've got a 4i crank-based power meter on the left side. Both of these are on here because Shimano does not yet make a power meter for the GRX cranks, which is a miss in my mind, an opportunity for other makers. So initial verdict on these Assioma Pro MXs is that they are very good pedals. And when compared over a few rides to the 4i crank, they seem to agree more or less. And yes, it's just left only, not left right, but my take on power meters is that as long as you're getting good consistency, the minutia of left-right is pretty inconsequential. What honestly are you going to do with left-right data? Or at what point you apply power? Noisy birds. You can get way into the weeds with power numbers. Personally, I just do a few things. When I'm on the bike, 3-second average is what I have on a few screens. That's what I'm looking at to just gauge the effort. And then afterwards, I will look at power over different durations, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, overall, normalized, etc. Oh yeah. I had the Silka Gravel Aero pump there, just in case, Murphy's Law, right? Just like I had extra TPU tubes, little guys, extra CO2s. Just needed the 1 CO2 and a couple dyno plugs, and there's a couple more on this side. Shimano 12-speed GRX. If you haven't seen my video on the launch, you can check that out. One thing I felt initially at Stetness Pater was that these guys are a little shorter than the 11-speed. That was incorrect. This distance is the same. What is different, I noticed, was this width here, in that this is chunkier than the 11-speed. I just measured those, and you can see the differences, you know, a couple centimeters in circumference at this point. So that's something that is noticeable. One thing I recommend about any group is putting your hands on the thing before you buy it, because there's 3 things going on with levers, right? There's the shifting functionality, and you can take my 2 cents on that with a grain of salt. Same for the braking. But then there's just the ergonomics of how the thing feels in your hands, and what I experience might be different from you. I like how these feel. Like I said, this is noticeably different than the 11-speed. I like the amount of space here compared to mechanical systems. That's also a thing I like about SRAM's electronic systems. There's just more room in there. You know, reach is adjustable. Just a good idea to try before you buy it. Just put your hands on the stuff. These have sprint shifters on them, which I was using and appreciating today, in that they wire into the otherwise now wireless shifters. Waxed the chain in my Silka pot at home before I came out, and then topped off with super secret wax last night. And as you can tell, it got a little dusty, a little mucky, a little sealanty out there. Had no chain issues, kept on running smooth. Clutch kept the chain in place. That's all you can ask. I was griping at the launch about the 4811 being the top gear for this bike. I didn't need anything larger today. If there was a bit more tailwind, and maybe if I was in the front group at the end, That might have been different, but my experience today was, this was plenty. I also used the low, the 3136. Since this now tethers wirelessly to Garmin's, Garmin will beep at you when you bottom out or top out on the low gear or big gear. It beeped at me a few times. Garmin also gave me a low battery warning, which caused me to shake my head at the halfway point. Haven't charged this bike in a couple weeks. As of yesterday, it looked like it was at 3/4, and then today at the halfway point, after I'd kind of given up on the chase, got a notification of shifting system, battery low. Oh no. I shifted up and down and up and down and up and down, and knock on wood, still had juice left to get me to the end. So how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? How many shifts does it take to kill a battery after you get the low battery warning? I don't know. But I was grateful that I was able to get, you know, a good 2.5 hours or so after I saw that initial warning. The system now charges here at the rear derailleur with the magnetic clip-on cable, the way the road system does. Gone is the plug into the port at the bar end or other places that Shimano use for the 11-speed system. And yes, I managed to have my saddlebag only laced through one of the rails, not both. It's always something with me. It's always something. Gravel racing, you never know what you're gonna get. It's a gamble. It's part of why we enjoy it, right? One thing I really enjoyed this year was seeing many of you folks, met people from Philippines, from Colombia, from Honduras, from Ecuador, from Colorado, from Albuquerque, a lot of folks from Albuquerque. Another thing I dig is the variety of distances, everything from 25 miles to Crazy Zeb doing and winning the 350 miles. A lot of different ways to get in where you fit in, and that's something I continue to appreciate about gravel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And if you came up and said hi this weekend, thanks for that. That helped me to enjoy the ride.